life. From Memphis, Tennessee, Miss Linda Thompson. I haven't seen you since over there. Yeah, I'm glad. I was so worried she would hear that I played Trouble when she walked out. So I'm glad she didn't notice that.
Well, you wouldn't have been wrong.
Well, okay. I read your book. I kind of know. One of the things I find so interesting about your book, and when I first bought it, I bought it for my wife Lisa because I said I want you to read because I thought I knew your story, and I said I got this for you right when it came out. And about 2 days into it, because that's about all it took to read, she was staying up and she said, "Do you know all this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I think I do." And one of the first things you say in your book is, I had to wait a little bit because a lot of it wasn't just my story.
Absolutely, and I had to have enough respect, for the people in my life to reveal their truth before I could expound upon it and tell what it was like from my point of view, from my perspective, to have lived through some of the things that I did.
Yeah, and we see so many autobiographies and biographies of people, and we know that there are things held back. And I know there are so many things in your life that are so personal, but to open up the way you did and to share the things that you did share is just amazing. And it feels like I'm sitting in the room listening to you talk to me when I read your book.
That's so nice to hear, and that's the way, I tried to write it. I really felt like it was such a huge responsibility. I waited I think 40 years until after Elvis had passed away, and everything that could have possibly been written about Elvis had been written, and then some, were made up stories. So I really thought it was a huge responsibility, and to this day, I've always attempted to represent him in the light that he deserves. He was such a remarkable human being, and again, I tried to write the book with kindness and tolerance and understanding, and also just a bit of knowledge that you can only garner through life experience. I had to live my life and carve out my own career. I didn't want to be one of those people that just jumped on the bandwagon and wrote a book and made a profit at his expense, to capitalize on that relationship. I was very guarded about that, and I wanted to carve out my own position in life, write my own songs, and carve out my own career, and have my kids and my family, and then write about my life and where he fit into it, which was, of course, the greatest love imaginable. And he's influenced my songwriting. He's influenced every aspect of my life.
And your story, not only for all of us, for your family, for Brandon and Brody, to read about you and to find. Did they find out things they didn't know?
I'm not sure they finished reading the book. They got to the part in the Elvis section where it got a little romantic, and Brody was going, "Mom, I don't know if I want to read about, you kissing Elvis and his lips were like marshmallows, and I don't know, that's just kind of weird." He said, "Just finish reading the book."
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's an amazing story, and it's just you get into the rhythm of listening to you in the book, and such a story. And it all began because your family, you were from Memphis, and your family were there, and at a very young age, you won a beauty queen title. I mean, we're talking to Miss Mid-South right here. I mean, this.
That was Miss Mid-South. That was a Mid-South fair. That was awesome. I love that title. I got to go to the fair every day, the Mid-South fair.
But that was something that was your first. Look at that. Here's this. Look at this photo.
18.
18 years old, and that's Mid-South Fair. That's Miss.
Of course, I like to say I was 5 years old, but I was mature for my age.
What did doing this, competing, and the several titles that you won, what did that teach you about what it takes to be in front of an audience?
Well, interestingly enough, I never thought I was the cutest thing. But somebody saw my photo in a yearbook. I was the homecoming queen at Kingsbury High School, and apparently they recruited girls to enter the pageants. And so I got recruited to enter the Miss Mid-South pageant, and you know, they kind of lured me by saying, oh, you'll win scholarships, you'll win luggage, you win cars, you win clothes, wardrobes. And my parents, we were very modest. You know, we didn't have any money at all. So, and I couldn't afford to put myself through school without working. And it afforded me the opportunity to finish 4 years of university because I won scholarships, and I did win a couple of cars. In fact, I won a Chevrolet Vega that didn't have any air conditioning. And you know how it is in the South here. It gets swelteringly hot in the summer. And it's the little Chevrolet Vega that I drove to Graceland when I first went to meet Mr. Presley, Vernon Presley, and Elvis had invited me the night after we met. And he made fun of my car. He said, is this your car, honey? I said, uh-huh, I want it. It's Miss Liberty Bowl. And he said, okay, yeah, that's really nice. Congratulations on Miss Liberty Bowl anyway. And of course, shortly thereafter, he bought me a Lincoln Mark IV.
Yeah, I was going to say that was first of several cars. Take us back. You talk about a meet cute, as they say in Hollywood. How did you meet Elvis for the very first time?
Well, I was Miss Tennessee Universe. In fact, my chaperone, with a big quote, Pat Kerr, Tigert is here today. She's a darling woman. So Pat was the director of the Miss Tennessee Universe pageant, and I won that year and went down to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and my roommate was Miss Rhode Island, Jeannie LeMay, and we became best friends. And when we came back to Memphis, she decided she wanted to come to Memphis and meet my family and maybe think about moving there. And we were walking down the street one day, and Bill Browder, who you know is T.G. Shepherd, he changed his name to T.G. Shepherd and had a lot of #1 hits. So T.G. says, hey girls, come on and have lunch with us at Fridays. And then he said, do you want to meet Elvis? And Jeannie immediately said, yes. And I said, Jeannie, we have to work. You know, we had a gig. I'm sure, Pat, you remember this. We had a gig modeling as Miss Tennessee Universe and Miss Rhode Island Universe. And I said, Jeannie, we have to work. And she says, I'm not missing an opportunity to meet Elvis. We'll do it. We'll get substitutes. So we got my cousin Shelley and one of her friends to go and do the modeling gig for us, which was highly irresponsible. They were expecting Miss Tennessee and Miss Rhode Island, not cousin Shelley. So we got in a little bit of trouble. Pat, you've forgiven me by now, right? So we met Elvis, and I was standing in the lobby of the Memphian Theater. That he rented out the Memphian Theater at midnight, and I'm standing there talking to David Stanley, his stepbrother, and he bangs on the door, and everybody scurried, and they went to open the door, and he had this long flashlight, and he was flashing it around, saying, hey, who locked that door? This is the door I wanted to come in. Sorry, boss. Everybody was going, sorry, boss, we thought you were going to come in the front door. And he said, no, you got to anticipate better than that. And he was yelling at them and stuff. And the light shone on my face, and he goes, oh, hello there. His whole demeanor changed, and he became that charming Southern gentleman. He walked over to me, and he said, and who are you, honey? And David Stanley said, this is Miss Tennessee Universe, Linda Thompson, and this is her friend, Jeannie LeMay, Miss Rhode Island. And we just made a little small talk in the lobby, and he was very gentlemanly, very attentive. Then we went inside and sat down, and he sat in the middle row of the theater always, and they had a little TV tray always set up for him in the middle row, and they would have his Tipperillos and a Coca-Cola set up, and nobody dared to sit in that row or anywhere in front of him. I didn't know that at the time, but I sat, several rows behind him with Jeannie, and he kept turning around to talk to me, and he was showing me some beautiful watch that he had, and just, making small talk. And then he went, we would always go like this to roll the movie. The movie started, and he got up and tapped, George Klein had sat down next to me, and he tapped George on the shoulder and went like that. So George went back to the lobby, and Elvis apparently said, who is that? And George said this, who I was, and gave me a good word, I guess. So I felt someone plop down next to me, and I thought it was George. Oh, it's Elvis. And I said, oh, to what do we owe this honor? And I was kind of, I was not intimidated. I thought he was married. I thought he was just being gracious. I wasn't flirting. I didn't think he would be flirty. And then he got very flirty, and I was very standoffish, and I said to Jeannie, we have to leave, that I'm not going to be a part of this. And he said, honey, I'm not married anymore, don't you? And I said, well, no, I didn't know that. How close can I get? No, he said, I'm not married anymore. Unfortunately, we split up around Christmas time, and I've been fully separated since January, and this was July 6th. And I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but you know, you should have married a Southern girl. And I know you all understand that, because we who come from the South, it's a whole different culture. I was just saying, in fact, everyone here is so friendly, and I've lived in California for a very long time, and I love it out there. But it's so nice to be around Southern, genteel, wonderful, warm, hospitable people. Tupelo is just magnificent and just filled with wonderful people. So my girlfriend wants to move here, my friend who's with me.
Well, I know some people that sell real estate.
Okay, all right. Second home.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you'd never in all those years, you'd never been to Tupelo. You'd heard about it, but
oh yes.
And you'd been as a child.
As a child, because you know I grew up in Memphis, and I had an uncle who lived here. He was a pharmacist, uncle and cousins who lived here. And I came down as a little kid, I think, but in the years that I lived with Elvis, you know, we talked about Tupelo, and he would tell me about his little shotgun house where he was born, and he told me about the church. I can't wait to see both. But I have to tell you a funny story about the little church, because he said, you know, there was a little church that my family went to, a Pentecostal church, I believe. And he said, I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I couldn't say hallelujah very plainly. He said, but I would just get filled with the Holy Spirit, and I'd run down the aisle singing, Addy Woochie, Addy Woochie, singing Addy, Addy Woochie all the way. So I called him Adawuchi half the time, but he was such a lovely, you know, human person like that. Like he really felt everything very deeply. He remembered wonderful remembrances of his childhood like that, and the church and the house. And so I'm so excited to see the house, and thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here, and the thing that I love about it is you really do see the roots. You understand where he came from. It's hard sometimes when you look at the cars and the jewelry and the mansion to remember the overall wearing little boy who lived in this town and was in no way on the right side of the tracks and what he was able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
And you talk in your book about those first few days that you guys did almost the equivalent of a year of courting. In about 2 or 3 days, you just became part of that world pretty quickly. And at this point, you're how old?
5.
Yeah, 5, right?
Okay, 6.
I mean, you had to grow up
That
so
was
quickly
22.
and understand kind of the operation of his world, and everything kind of revolved around what he wanted to do.
Oh, absolutely. And even though I was 22 and had gone through 4 years of university, but experientially I was probably about 15, because I had never gotten out of Memphis except one time to go to Houston. I was the golf queen at Memphis State, and never played golf in my life, by the way. But I was the golf queen and flew to Houston. That was my first time on an airplane. So experientially, I was very naive and kind of green. So, and I think he loved that. I mean, he absolutely loved that about me. But you're right, in the 4.5 years that I lived with him would equate, honestly, to about a 20-year marriage if you thought about people like going to work and coming home and, you know, taking separate activities together and that kind of thing. We were together 24/7, and he was quite needy as an individual, and he wanted me with him. Like when I first met him, and I left town for 2 weeks, and when I came back into town, he said, where have you been? He had Joe Esposito calling me every day. We were down in Gulf Shores, Alabama, if any of you have been there. It's so pretty. So I went with my Aunt Betty down to Gulf Shores and was off the grid. You know, he couldn't reach me for 2 weeks, and it made him crazy. So when I came back, we got home at like 10 o'clock at night, and the phone was ringing, and Joe Esposito said, oh my God, I've got this number memorized. I've dialed it 10 times a day. Elvis has been driving me crazy. Where have you been? And then Elvis took the phone and said, get on a plane. I want you with me. When I told you I wanted you with me, that's what I meant. I want you with me. Who the hell do you think I am? I guess you're Elvis.
So you were playing hard to get without even knowing that's what you were doing.
Yeah, because I had a plan to go with my Aunt Betty Sue to Gulf Shores, Alabama, so I stayed with that commitment. And but I swooned over him. We played his music the whole time we were down in Gulf Shores, and I guess I was being a little coy, you know, but I was not used to being the one that would pursue, so I let him do the pursuing.
Because you didn't get his number. He got
No, yeah, and I made him work for it because he said, "Can I get your phone number?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a pen or a piece of paper." So he said, "Joe," and he actually, it's such a cliche, but he actually wrote my phone number on a matchbook. And then all the way home to Aunt Betty's house, we were going there that night, I was kicking myself saying, "Linda, he probably didn't write the number down right, or maybe he threw the matchbook away. Why were you being so coy?" You know, I didn't think I would hear from him, but as soon as I got to Aunt Betty's house, he was on the phone.
Yeah. We've got some photos I wanted to show, and you can start on 7. The two of you together, and I look and I see these, and I see what was the equivalent at the time of probably Instamatic photos in a lot of cases, personal photos, and then a lot of what we call now paparazzi photos of going into places and coming out of places, and a lot of things in
A lot of fan photos.
A lot of fan
Thank
photos.
God for the fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause-
But when you look and see that girl in that photo, what do you wish you could tell her now?
Wear sunscreen. No, I wish that we had been together, and I wish he had been in this lifetime, in a time where there was the Betty Ford Center, where there were facilities that could help people who have issues with drug addiction. Even though Elvis was apple pie, mama, apple pie, all-American, paid his taxes across the board, never a deduction. He was such a pristine and amazing man of character and nobility. But, you know, he got caught up with uppers and downers, and then he was on stage. It was the same Judy Garland thing, you know, same syndrome that happened with her, and it happens to a lot of performers, and he was kind of a victim of that. If they had just had facilities like they do now, there's a plethora of them everywhere around the country. If we had had that, maybe we could have gotten him the help that he needed. I went to the hospital one time at Baptist Hospital after we'd come back from Vegas, and he had pneumonia. And we came back on a medical evacuation airplane. He was on oxygen. And there was a Dr. Knott and a Dr. Fink, and they helped him, but to the best of their ability. But at the time, there just weren't, there wasn't the knowledge, and there weren't the
Well,
the
all
places.
addiction was one category. It was
Yeah.
just the worst of the worst, and that was it.
Exactly,
It
and
wasn't
he was
tough.
embarrassed. He was embarrassed by it and ashamed of it. And the times that he would, you know, reckon with himself and realize that he had a problem, but there was really not any help. So what I would tell myself would be, you know, I don't think I could have done anything more than I did to try to take care of him and to love him and let him know that he was loved and cared for, and to attend to his needs. There's nothing I could give myself in that regard as far as advice. But I, you know, wish I had known more about prescription medication, and my family didn't even drink, you know, so I didn't know anything about drugs or even alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Let's go to photo 17. I see this picture and I think about your life and the thing that's fascinating about your book is when Elvis traveled, you or I would leave in the morning to go somewhere, but so many times they're talking about, we're leaving tonight for Las Vegas.
we lived
Tonight.
our lives at night.
It was flipped around, but your life was a constant traveling from here to there. Sometimes after he got the Lisa Marie, anytime he wanted,
Oh,
he
yeah.
had that.
When I look at that photo, what I can see is that little blue bow in the hair. What was I thinking? That's how innocent I was. Yeah, we did live life in reverse. Like, we would wake up. I got to tour Graceland yesterday, did a little VIP tour and revisited where I lived. And in the kitchen, I was telling my friend Dorothy, who's with me, this is where Dodger, Elvis's grandmother, would come in and have her breakfast every morning at 8 a.m. She would come and sit at the counter, and Elvis and I would very likely be just coming in and going to bed. We'd say, good night, Dodger. Good morning, good night.
Yeah.
So our hours were totally reversed. We lived like vampires. We were up all night and asleep all day.
Yeah, and photo 15, this is, again, kind of one of those things where you're just on the way somewhere.
Yeah, that's before he got his plane.
Yeah.
So we would charter. Sometimes he would buy out the whole first class section for the guys and me, and then the ones that didn't fit into the first class section he would put in the back. But this was a charter plane, and I think I have a go-go dress and go-go boots on, much to his liking.
Seeing the photos, I mean, Elvis is in a huge Superfly phase at this point, which is my favorite. I always say that's my favorite Elvis, because that's when...
That's a perfect description.
Yeah, it was hats and canes and fur and capes and, like you said, that big flashlight. I mean, that was... And the purple glasses. I mean, those were the Superfly years, and he wore it better than anybody. And it is kind of timeless in a way when he wears it. And looking at you're a fashion show of 70s
I kind of was.
couture, yeah.
I know. It's so funny because my son Brody Jenner always looks at Elvis's photos, and he sees the glasses and the hats and the coat with the little cape and the Superfly, all the jewelry. He says, "Mom, Elvis was the original pimp daddy." Yeah, he was. He's such an admirer. Brody got a TCB tattoo on his wrist. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Elvis was the original gangsta because he had a crib, he had Graceland, he had
Entourage.
He had a gang. He had an entourage. He had those. Everybody had
the jewelry.
Everybody had the jewelry. Everybody had cars, and it was just life lived in that bubble of those. You're talking the book about the 13 mafia members, and you were the 14th member of all.
Yeah, I was one of the guys.
Yeah.
Because I was always there. It was interesting because when I first started going on tour with Elvis and going to the Vegas shows, I was there for the entire Vegas show, like every January and every August, and so I'd be there for almost the entire time. And he would say, "Honey, by the way, the wives never get to come, only the girlfriends." And I thought, well, okay, I don't think I want to be a wife then.
Yeah.
And truly, like he took me on tour everywhere.
Yeah.
And to Vegas, and they did have kind of this code where all the guys were pretty much all married, but they would fly in girlfriends, and and it was odd for me because I grew up very traditionally, very conservatively, religious. My parents, grandparents, everybody was married for 50 years. My brother Sam is celebrating his 50th anniversary next year, wedding anniversary. So it was hard for me, to reconcile that in my mind. How do I be in this and not of it? And so he knew how I felt about it. And it was funny because I even asked him one time, well, I won't mention the man's name, but I saw him with a girl, and I said, "Isn't he married?" And he said, "Oh, well, honey, I'm really not sure." I said, "You've known him your whole life. You're not sure?"
Yeah, there are rules. Yeah.
Rock and roll.
Go to 21. I love these photos too of Elvis in the stage outfit with you and getting ready to go on. And again, when you see, it's almost like seeing a baseball player off the field. I remember one time watching Johnny Carson, and Tommy Lasorda came right from a game and was on the Tonight Show, and he looked weird on Johnny's set in a baseball uniform. He looked fine on the baseball field. To see Elvis off stage, you'd think, well, that wouldn't go in normal, but he pulls it off in just a room like that.
He could pull off anything.
Yeah,
He always looked amazing to me. Yeah, but he was ready to go on stage. I think we were either in Nashville or Atlanta in this photo. I can't remember. Lisa was with us. Lisa Marie was with us when this shot was taken. Yeah, and he, again, he wanted me with him right before he would go, and the guys would escort him into the stage. I think he just found great comfort in feeling like he was surrounded by love and familiar faces, and he always wanted to give his very best to his fans.
And how was he in those moments before going on stage? Did he get nervous?
He got nervous, yeah, he absolutely did. And he would kind of go over things in his mind, like what songs and what lyrics, and so you could see him kind of just wander, his mind would wander off, and then, he was attentive again. But he really took it very seriously. Before every show in Las Vegas, particularly, he did like this nasal douche. Like he would put salt water in his nose to clear his throat, and it just sounded god awful. And he put himself through that every time. But he took it very, very seriously. That he didn't ever want to disappoint a single fan. And sometimes we would go out and he would dress like this. And I'd say, "Honey, don't you want to put on like a sweatsuit and a baseball cap or something? So if you want to try to be anonymous, you know? He said, no, honey, because people are going to recognize me, and if they do, I don't want them to be disappointed and see me dressed down. So he always thought about all of you. He always thought about his fans and never wanted to disappoint you.
Yeah, go to 25. This is casual Elvis, just out for an afternoon. Just, you know, looking like that. That's just the open collar white shirt and black leather jacket.
Leather jacket.
Yeah.
And it was probably really hot. If you can see that we're both very tan, and I've got on a midriff, you know, little pantsuit thing. So it was probably very hot. But
I was told by a wise celebrity one time, always dress for the photo. No matter what the weather is, always look your best. If everybody else is in shorts and you look best in a suit, wear a suit.
I'm going to make note of that.
Dress for the photo. Because
Right.
all the other stuff will fade away and you'll just be looking. And so he dressed for the photo in that weather.
He was so incredibly gorgeous, though. Honestly, he was the most beautiful man. And, you know, not just physically, but his heart as well. But just physically, let's just talk about that for a minute. He was just absolutely exquisitely gorgeous. Like, I used to just lie awake sometimes at night and study his face and every little pore and every little curvature of his lip and his perfect nose and his eyelashes and his eyebrows. He was just beautiful and so tender and sweet. He was like a little sleeping baby, you know, but truly a beautiful man and just, and he was in, you know, most of the time when I was with him, he was in pretty good shape. He would go through little bouts of gaining weight, and then like the Aloha from Hawaii via satellite. Yeah. He went on a 500 calorie a day diet to lose weight for that, which I don't know how he even got through that show with that minimal. I mean, I ate one of those and a protein bar is 500 calories. You know, I don't know how he did it, but he did it.
And when he had a challenge, when he had a challenge coming back from the Army, I'll show him. When he had the 68 comebacks, but I'll show him. When he had the opening in Vegas, when he had the Aloha, when he had that challenge, he was there for it. If it drifted, it tends to become routine, and it's hard to keep that up. And that's the difficulty of the kind of career that any musician had in the 70s. I mean, there were just not things in place to make life easy. Smartphones and computers, and even that make things so much easier for us now than they were then.
Absolutely. And he was frustrated. I think particularly in the last months of his life, you know, he had done it all. He had conquered Las Vegas. He sold out every tour. And he really wanted to make a meaningful film. He wanted to have a great acting role. He wanted to tour Europe. He wanted to tour internationally, and I think he felt stymied. I think he just kind of felt stuck, like, you know, I've done everything that I can do, and he wanted to expand further. And, you know, people ask me, well, why Elvis? You know, why after 44 years after his passing is he still so iconic and people are still, you know, so impassioned by him? Because he was an original, and there aren't many originals. You know, he was, like you said, the original OG. He was the original Pimp Daddy, as Brody would say. But the innovator that he was in fashion, in music, and just in his style, and the way he lived his life, and being a role model for so many people. You know, he was one of the last originals.
And you talked about your family being a Southern family, and sometimes I think we forget that Elvis's family was just this Southern family. You never got to meet Gladys. You heard a lot from people about him. Take us through some of the Presleys that were in the house. All of us have heard the legend of Dodger and Delta and Vernon, but you knew these people as true characters.
Very, very much so. True characters, for sure. Well, Mr. Presley, I always called him Mr. Presley just out of respect, because, as you know, in the South we say yes sir, yes ma'am, and Mr. and Mrs. So I always called him Mr. Presley. And he was kind of, you know, not an easy person to get to know, but we grew very close. And I remember one time on the elevator, and he was very gruff, and he didn't say much to anybody, you know, and he was very guarded and protective of Elvis, which was wonderful. But he only had a 5th grade education, and he was handling Elvis's finances. So he was, of course, you know, tuned in and focused all the time on that. But he and I were on an elevator one time, and I was always, you know, just kind of intimidated by him a little bit. He said, "Linda?" I said, "Yes, sir?" And he said, "I think you're the kindest person I've ever met." I said, I just melted. I went, "What?" And he said, I used to think my aunt, an aunt that I have, was the kindest person, but after watching you for these years, I think you're the kindest person I ever met. That still sticks with me to this day and makes me want to tear up, because he did not give compliments easily like that. But that's the kind of hard-edged guy he was, and that was. And then he came to my house after Elvis's funeral and sat at my feet and said, "Thank you for keeping my son alive. I know that I got more years with my boy because you were with him. I know the good care that you took of him." Yeah. And those are the things that you take with you in your life, and it helps you sleep better at night, and makes you feel warmer when you think about someone. Aunt Delta, on the other hand, Aunt Delta was a piece of work. I went back a few years ago and saw Uncle Vester, and Uncle Vester was at the gate. I said, "Uncle Vester, is Aunt Delta still living?" He said, "Oh, hell yeah, that woman's too damn mean to die." And that was his sister. So that was Aunt Delta. But
she was still in the mansion when the tours opened, which just this past Monday, it was 39 years ago that the mansion opened, and they would cut her off in the mansion during tours. She had these little sections that she would live in and watch Days of Our Lives.
Oh,
and
she was a character.
And I remember in the house one time on a tour, we saw a lady walking by outside the window, and she's walking a little dog. And I said, "Who is that?" And the tour guide said, "That's Aunt Delta. We don't mess with her."
You don't mess with Aunt Delta, that's for sure. Yeah. But it really demonstrates the kind of human being Elvis was. He let his grandmother live with him. She was in his care always. Dodger, we called her, Minnie Mae Presley. So she had her own little bedroom, which I got to see yesterday, and it brought back memories for me. And she was as cute as she could be. She was in her 80s and would dye her hair black. And so you'd see her little roots come out, but her hair was dyed black. And she would squint her eyes, and she says, "Honey, I look like an old owl, don't I?" I said, "No, Dodger, you're beautiful." And she dipped snuff. I mean, that was Southern. She had a little can by her, and Elvis and I would go in and visit with her before we'd go out to a movie or something, sit and talk to her for a while. But it tells you a lot about his character that, sometimes my daddy lived with me as well, but sometimes when people get old and they've outserved their usefulness in your life, you put them away in a home and forget about them. And Elvis didn't do that. He brought his grandmother to his home, and Aunt Delta, God bless her, did take care of Dodger with us. So it just tells you something about how kind he was and how loyal he was as a human being.
And something else which is unheard of today. We were talking about how things were then and how they're different now, and how things could have been helpful to him that exists now. Something exists now that seems to be unthinkable in the 70s, at least with Elvis, and that was Elvis was not publicly political. He got on stage to entertain 100%, not 50%.
We could use a lot more of that right now. Everybody would stop being so political. Right? God bless him for that. And you're absolutely right. And he was adamant and stuck by that. And people would try, to get him to make a statement or an endorsement. And he said, my goal in life and my role in life is to entertain people. I'm not here to use my platform to influence or persuade people. He said, they make up their own minds. And he didn't take any deductions on his taxes. I mean, he said, it's an honor to live in this country. He was very patriotic, paid 50% across the board. I don't know anybody who does that now, or before or since,
Just no deductions, the full amount, because he said, I don't want to get in trouble with the IRS. He wore a cross and a Star of David and every other religious
Egyptian
symbol.
Ankh, yeah.
Because he's not going to miss heaven on account of a
so
technicality.
True. Yeah, a guy came up to him one time and said, Elvis, you got the Star of David, you got the cross, the crucifix, you got the Egyptian Ankh, and I don't even know what that other thing is you're wearing. He says, man, are you confused? Elvis says, no, man, I just don't want to miss heaven on a technicality. So he had it all covered. And he also read books about every religion, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism. And he honored every religion and said there's beauty and truth in everybody's faith. If we could have a president like Elvis, that would just honor everyone and and because we're all in this together, and everybody's. I remember hearing a president one time say, "Sometimes your fate in life is just latitude and longitude. It's where you're born and what you're taught to believe. So you have to respect other people's beliefs." And he did. You know, he was a great shining example of that, as well as a lot of other things.
Yeah, and we were just talking about the crosses and the crucifixes, and jewelry was such a part of, and when you see the birthplace, you will understand, I think, even more than you do, why wearing that beauty was so important for him, to show that, and you were able to kind of participate in that and help even design like pieces.
That Maltese cross that he wore on stage a lot. But it's true, and he always would give me this admonition, because I would sometimes put things away, and he said, "Honey, wear this. You know, I want you to wear this jewelry." And I think about it now, because I really keep most of my jewelry in a safe deposit box, the jewelry that he gave me. And I think about it because he said, an object is not beautiful if no one sees it. And it's so logical and so obvious, but it's something that you don't think about, you know. Yes, I was the recipient of really beautiful gifts. Like I remember one time he walked in to the airplane, and he had this beautiful blue diamond, and it was surrounded by round diamonds and then baguette diamonds set in platinum. And he gave it to me, and I said, what's this for? It's not my birthday, it's not Christmas, it's not anything. And he said, "It's Tuesday and I love you." So where do you go from there?
You had, because Vernon paid all the bills. Vernon's the only one that ever really saw what it was. And you had an idea for a design, and you worked with Lowell on it. And
Lowell's
you had
here.
an interesting way, because you had Elvis's credit card, so in effect, he was going to be paying for it, but you wanted to do it a certain way, and I love this in the book, when you had a way to ask Elvis for permission.
To buy something for him.
Yeah.
It was Christmas time, and I wanted to design a beautiful diamond cross for him to wear on stage, and just, you know, to always have with him. And so I designed this beautiful Maltese cross that Lowell made, and we worked together on that. And Lowell's here. Hi, Lowell. He's an amazing guy. And so it was a Maltese cross with pave diamonds, my birthstone, which is emeralds, for May, and his was garnets, January, and an eternity ring around the two hearts, binding them together, and the hearts were turned on their side with a little diamond connecting them at the tip. So, and it's engraved, you know, Merry Christmas. But anyway, I designed this thing, and I thought, okay, I got to go and ask about, you know, it's going to be an expenditure, so I have to just say, and Elvis never would have even seen it, but I wanted to let him know.
Vernon was going to say something.
But yeah, but I wanted to just make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask Vernon. Didn't ask Mr. Presley. So I just said, "Honey, I've got something special that I want to have made for you at Christmas." He said, "What is it?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to tell you what it is, but it's kind of expensive, and I just wanted to clear it with you first, because I think you'll really love it, but it is expensive." "Well, how much money are we talking, honey?" I said, $25,000. He said, $25,000? And I said, "Now, doesn't 8,000 sound better?" And he started laughing. He was like rolling around laughing, and he said, "Honey, is that what it's going to cost, $8,000? I said, "Yeah, is that okay?" He said, "Of course it is. You can spend anything you want to on me."
The 25 would have been okay too, but well played. Well played. That's pretty smart. You were also, there are so many famous items in Graceland, but you are responsible for
Stand up and show them
some
the beautiful peacocks.
Yes, guess who's responsible for these stained glasses?
Yeah, I designed those and had them put into the music room when we were redecorating Graceland, because Elvis was, let's face it, you know, he could strut like a peacock. He was this beautiful, colorful, magnificent being. So he always reminded me of a peacock, you know. So I thought that would be a beautiful symbol for the music room. And then the climbing roses in the front door, I designed those and had those put in the P above the front door. And he wanted the downstairs living room and dining room to look like our bedroom, which was gold and red and black. So it was like a bordello. But we did it together, and we, decorated the dining room and the living room, and it really did look a lot like a bordello, but it was his taste, and it was over the top, and it was red and vibrant and, eye-catching, but they put it back to the more modest and tasteful white, which it is now. But I loved seeing how flamboyant his taste was, and we did the jungle room together. He wanted, I remember when we were, I'm sure you've all, or a lot of you have been there to Graceland, and when you go down into the basement rooms, into the pool room and the TV room downstairs, which I also decorated, but in the jungle room, he said, honey, I want you to put carpet going up the wall on the ceiling. I want it to look like moss is growing, and this is we're out like in the jungle, or we're out in the forest, and it's all lush and green. I said, you sure about that, honey? Carpet up the wall? Yeah, honey, I want it to look like moss growing. So that's why we have carpet on those. It's still the same carpet. I saw it yesterday. I was going, oh my God.
That's amazing to me, and I love that there was this, and I've heard it from so many people that worked with him, that in a way he was still a big little kid.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, and his nickname was Crazy. He had this beautiful ID bracelet on the front. It was written Elvis in diamonds. I don't know if Lowell made it or not, but someone made it for him. Elvis written in diamonds, and you flip it over and it said Crazy. So that was his nickname, because he was just just anything went. He would love to play with fireworks, and they're lucky that they still have their ears and digits, all the digits on their fingers, because it was crazy. They would go out and set off those rockets and the chasers and chase each other with. I just kind of watched from a distance.
Jerry told me about the time that they were out doing the Roman candles and the siding on the house. He was, Jerry, go put out the house.
Set the house on fire.
The house is starting to smoke. He's just go put out the house.
Well, it's like when we were watching Robert Goulet on TV, and he said, honey, step out of the room. And he picked up his gun. It was always by the side of the bed, loaded. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm tired of hearing this guy saying, step out of the room, close the door behind you. Honey, stop, really, please don't do that. Step out of the room, I'm not going to tell you again. So I get up, and we were in bed. I open the padded doors there. We haven't been upstairs, but there are padded doors going from the office into the bedroom. Close the padded door, heard boom, boom, boom. Shot the TV out. And then I went back in, he says, honey, tell Ricky to come up here and get this piece of crap and get me a new TV. Okay.
So what was it about, you can dispel this, what was it about Robert Goulet that...
It was nothing personal, honestly. Robert Goulet has a beautiful voice, and I'm sure Elvis appreciated his voice. He was just tired of hearing, I think it was like a song that was recurring at that time, like maybe Camelot. It was something that annoyed him. And it just, all it took was just slight annoyance like that.
Like a car.
Like the Pantera that he bought me, yes. We were sitting in the car, going to the movie theater one night, like around midnight or 1 in the morning, and Elvis had bought me this beautiful bright yellow Pantera and gave it to me, and I said, honey, I have a car, I don't need this. And then he took it for a spin around the block when it was running, and he came back, and his hair was blown back, and he said, you can't have this car. And I said, good, I didn't want this car. It's like, he said, no, it's too fast, you'll get killed in it, honey. You just, I love you, and I don't want you to riding around in this car, it's too fast. So we get in the car one night to go to the movie theater, and the car wouldn't start. And he tried it again, and it wouldn't start. Tried it again, and I'll leave out the expletives, because he did have a mouth on him. But he said a few choice words, and he said, honey, get out of the car. And he starts pulling the gun out of his holster. No, honey, this is a beautiful car. What are you doing? Honey, get out of the car and step away. No, and I'm pleading. And then the guys saw me and him pulling the gun out, and they were all going, no, boss, that's a beautiful car. Boss, don't do it. And he said, honey, last time I'm telling you, get out of the car. I got out of the car, and I stepped away from the vehicle, and he got out of the car. And God was with him, because what if the gas tank had exploded? He shot 5 holes in this car. And all the guys were going, oh my God, it's a beautiful car. And I'm saying, what are you doing? And then a guy named David, who drove a Corvette, David got in the car, it started right up. It started right up. It was like, okay, we get it. Even the car was afraid.
Well, there were so many stories like that. There's so much I could cover about your life, and there's so many questions, and I wanted to be able to do some questions from the audience, but it's just too big a venue. But I did have one person, I got their number that's here, and I wanted to see about if we could just talk to them. I thought this would be the easiest way to get in touch.
And by the way, thank you for playing my songs.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And nobody's ever done that. That's so very nice
Well, I
to be
appreciate
acknowledged for, you know, a talent that you've exhibited in your
Well, I
life.
wanted everybody to hear. Hang on, I have a caller here. Yes, is the caller there?
Yeah, is this Mr. Brown?
Yes, it is.
I know
And
that voice.
this is a fan of Elvis and a fan of Linda Thompson's. And do you have your question, please?
Do I have my question? Yes. But I want to make sure, is this Mr. Brown of the, Mr. Tom Brown of the Tom and Jerry show?
Yes, this.
Jerry!
Wait a minute, this sounds like Jerry of the Tom and Jerry show. Is this Jerry Schilling?
Well, let me get to the question.
Uh-oh.
I'd like to direct this to Linda Lou.
Hi, honey, I love you.
Linda Lou, is it true that while you were dating Elvis and living with Elvis, that you literally went on a TV show and put a big fat kiss on some good-looking guy?
Well, it was in the script.
You don't remember that?
Oh my, how could I ever forget that? I thought you were going to ask me who's the better kisser, me or Elvis. Jerry and I did.
Let me ask you, who was that guy?
That would have been Jerry Schilling, who was also in The Rookies. It was a television show, Aaron Spelling's show, The Rookies. And Jerry and I had a scene together, and Ned Beatty had to pull me out of the booth, and Fernando Lamas directed it. But Jerry and I had to sit in the booth, and the director said, okay, now you guys kiss. And Jerry and I had to kiss on camera, and we both went, we're dead. He's gonna kill us both.
Tom, I can hardly hear Linda.
But she was telling the Rookies story about the kiss.
Oh, okay.
We thought we'd both be killed. We knew we'd both be killed, right? If Elvis ever saw that episode.
No, I were nervous for a year. And then we got nervous when reruns came back. But luckily, Elvis never saw it.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much.
The scary part was, pleasantly scary, was kissing Linda Lou.
Oh.
I mean, you know, I knew her boyfriend very well.
Yes, yes. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for letting me give you a call. I told him a couple of weeks ago I was going to be calling. He goes, oh, I want to come up with a question. So, Jerry, thank you. I'm going to let you go. And right now we've got a photo of the two of us out on your balcony in West Hollywood in the home that Elvis bought you.
Jerry,
Send my love to the fans and Linda Lou.
we love you,
have to get
Jerry.
together next week. I love you. I love
Let's
your
have
family.
dinner. And remember that I was with Elvis when we came up and saw that house and when he bought it for you? Yeah.
Thank.
You were with when he gave me the check,
Right. Right.
you know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
ironically, guys, the person he bought it for me, was the producer, Rick Husky,
Oh,
TV
right.
show, who was my big brother in the fraternity at Arkansas State University.
There's no such thing as coincidence, Jerry.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. Tupelo says hello, Jerry. Bye, Memphis 2. I call him Memphis 2 because I said, you're the second most famous person from Memphis.
He's
And-
such
and
a
he
great
calls
guy.
me Tupelo 2 because I'm
Tupelo
the
2.
second most famous person from Tupelo.
I love it. Jerry's a great guy, and that's a true story. I had just started to do a little bit of acting, and Aaron Spelling, who was a very good friend of Elvis's, put me in the TV show The Rookies, and Jerry and I had to do this scene together, and that's not a joke. We had to kiss, and we both immediately went, oh, we're dead. If Elvis ever sees this, we're dead. Because he was a very jealous guy.
Well, there's one quick story I wanted you to tell, and it leads right into that. And among all the photos that I came up with, we had amongst the crew the photo we call the infamous photo number 23. So if you would bring photo number 23 to the screen, there's a little story that goes along with that outfit.
There is. So there was a store in Las Vegas called Susie Cream Cheese, and she had all these avant-garde designers, and this was a hand-crocheted outfit that Elvis picked out for me to wear. And, you know, you can see that it's, you know, pretty risque. It's kind of provocative, shall we say. So he picked this outfit out, and he would love to show me off in this outfit. And we were going to see Tom Jones's show when I first met him, Elvis. And he said, honey, wear that outfit that I got for you, you know, that hand-crocheted outfit, the white one. I said, really? And he said, yeah, I want to show you off. I want him to eat his heart out. I said, okay. So I wore this outfit when we went to see Tom Jones, and like about 3 years later, I think, we were going to see Tom Jones's show again, and so I put on something kind of sexy and revealing, and came out, and Elvis says, what are you wearing? I said, well, the last time we went to see Tom Jones's show, you wanted to show me off, you wanted me to dress kind of provocatively, you know, to tease him, and he said, well, that was when you were my girlfriend, now you're my woman. Go put something, now we're more serious, you're my woman, and I don't want him looking at you.
The Southern boy is still there.
Yeah. Exactly.
We are so excited that you came to Tupelo, and we have a gentleman here that wanted to welcome you to town. Is the mayor around, Mayor Jason Shelton?
One of my favorite people.
Yes. He is one of our huge ambassadors of the life of Elvis here around the world. He's like David Hasselhoff. He's very big in Germany.
He is very big in Germany.
Yes.
You don't even, I was there.
Yes.
I saw how big he was in Germany. We were at Bad Nauheim. That's where we met a couple of years ago.
Absolutely, and such an honor and privilege to see you there, and you know, it's such an honor to have you here in the city of Tupelo. You know, this is something I can't think of a better way for my last, you know, as mayor, my last festival than for you to be here as our special guest.
That means a lot to me. I think the world of you.
Well, thank you. And she, let's give her another big round of applause. Thank
you.
I know everybody knows Linda and about her, but she is as kind and gracious as any person I've ever met. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you. And as mayor, if I could.
What you got there?
We're so very proud and honored that you're here with us as our special guest this weekend for the Elvis Festival. On behalf of the city of Tupelo, it's my honor and privilege to present you with the key to the city and to say thank you.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I have goosebumps. Oh, now I am moving here. Yeah. Dorothy, get your things.
We love you and we appreciate you and just are so appreciative of you being here and spending time with us this weekend.
It's such an honor for me and a privilege, and I was just saying it's so heartwarming to be around warm Southern people that are so hospitable and genuine and genuinely good, just good people, good humanity. So thank you. It's honestly my honor. You're amazing. And this man represents your city so beautifully. When we were in Germany, you commanded so much respect and people loved you there, and he talked about Tupelo in the most loving terms and about all the people here. So you are a beautiful representative of an amazing place. So thank you.
I told you I liked her. She's good.
But you are.
Thank you, Mayor. She said that exactly the way you wrote it. It's amazing.
He didn't even need to write it.
And I can't wait for you to show Brandon and Brody your key.
I'm so impressed with myself right now.
And I got to tell you, we're out of time, but there's so much. There's a contingent of us here of my generation that would only have talked for an hour about hee-haw, and your TV career and the things that you did as a songwriter. There's another contingent of young ladies that have been bombarding me on Facebook with, please ask about that. They are Brandon and Brody fanatics. You have such a great social media presence. You had a recent birthday party where everybody of your entire, almost every person of your life was in one room. You have this amazing ability to, even if a relationship is over with someone, they still are in your orbit.
Well, I just think it's so important to have enough respect and reverence for that time of caring that you never hate anybody, you never harbor bitterness. And I try to raise my kids that way, that, you know, when you're resentful and you're vitriolic and you're angry and you're carrying around anger towards someone, you're only hurting yourself. It's like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. I know you've all heard that adage. And I believe that to be true. And I don't believe in burning bridges. I think that however anyone else behaves, we can't control that, but we can control how we respond to it and react to it. And we have to just be who we are and carry ourselves in the way that we are comfortable living with, because you have to live inside your own skin for your whole life, and you better make it a comfortable place and not harbor resentment. So that's been my philosophy. Yeah, it was nice to have David Foster and the now Caitlyn Jenner. That's a whole nother interview.
Yeah.
But
Well,
didn't see that one coming.
You can feel it in the book.
The funny thing is, too, though, I have to say this, that when Elvis and I finally did part ways, part of my reason for leaving was that I wanted to have a normal life. I wanted to have children. I wanted to have a more normal existence. And I thought that I had found my normal with Bruce Jenner, the Olympic decathlon champion. So it just kind of goes to show you, that's why the book is entitled A Little Thing Called Life, because you never know. It was, you know, the movie Forrest Gump was right. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting thing, because I began talking about the book, and I always want to end on something and say a word or say something about a guest, but I think you wrote something about how to end. And if you would, just maybe a few words to because I think when you listen to music a lot of times, a song, sometimes we get caught up in the music and we don't hear the lyrics. And you're a poet that has your poetry set to music, but I think your words are so important.
Thank you. Wow.
This song, obviously, is so important to you in the lyrics. So
Which
if you
one?
would, just a little thing called Life.
Which Harper Collins, when we did the book, this is a song they wanted to name the book this, A Little Thing Called Life, because they thought it kind of summed up how crazy my life was. And I have to say this one time, I used to write him poetry, and he would say, honey, this is beautiful, let me have someone put this to music and I'll record it. And in my naivete, not knowing about royalties, I just said, no, it's personal between us. But imagine if I could have written then and known about just having that for posterity, just to have, and I would have loved for him to have recorded Grown Up Christmas List. It's one of my favorite lyrics. But okay, this is another one of my favorite lyrics, and Aaron Neville recorded this song, and it's A Little Thing Called Life. Somewhere near, a baby cries, and somewhere far, someone dies, and everywhere you'd swear there were a pair of hidden eyes. When the moon sets, the sun will rise. And without a doubt, the rain will fall, and then the sky reclaims it all. It's just a simple cycle that happens someplace every day. It's just a little thing called life. We'll never ever understand it, and we can't always command it. The truth is not always plain to see, but never ever underrate it. We should always celebrate it. Every day is a miracle to me. And I'll skip to the last verse, which is, the planet turns and love unfolds. Passion burns and then turns cold. But every day's a new day, another chance to get it right. It's just a little thing called life. Wow. And what a blessing life is, even in the hard times, right?
Thank you, Linda Thompson, from Tupelo, Mississippi, to you. We love you. Thank you.
I love you guys so much. Thank you.
And you're going to be back tomorrow night. You have your work cut out for you.
Yeah,
It's not just having fun with me on stage. tomorrow night you get to judge in the finals, and good luck to
I'm
you.
excited about that. And you know, Elvis used to say that imitation is the highest form of flattery. Not that these guys are imitating, but they're all paying such great respect to him, the ETAs. And I don't know of anyone in history who has their own acronym, Elvis Tribute Artist. So that's pretty amazing. And these guys are, I am amazed at how talented they are. They really are wonderful. So you're in for a treat if you're going to watch the competition. Thank you all so much for being so wonderful. You're all great.
Thank you. Linda Thompson, we'll see you back here at 7:30 for Friday Night Fever. Cody Daneth, David Lee, and Dean Z right here tonight. And you can listen to a little thing called Live on the way out. Thanks for being here.